Hey everyone, I hope you're doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. And in this video, I have 3 encounters for you that you just don't really know what they encountered, but you know that it's not normal. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. So this is by far the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. I was working as a cook in a dive, and it was around midnight on a weekday. It was just right around closing time. The kitchen was already closed and I was cleaning, and then the waitress comes to the kitchen saying that some strange people come in, demanding for food. My boss tells me to do it, which is kind of weird because usually he's pretty strict about the closing time of the restaurant, but I get paid overtime, so I figured I'll do it. The waitress tells me to take a look at them. It's a middle-aged couple and 3 teenagers. I've never seen them around. I've grown up in this neighborhood and I know everyone. They came walking, no car in sight, and it's around midnight. And then she says, "No dude, look at their faces." It looked like they were using those super realistic face silicone masks, but the texture was leathery. They order 22-ounce beers and 2 loaded fries, 3 pounds of loaded fries. I made the fries and sent them, and I turned off the fryer again. 5 minutes later, the plates come back empty, but not really empty. They were full of saliva. I say saliva because it was the only thing that I can compare it to or think of. It was some translucent, foul-smelling goo. One huge puddle of saliva on each plate. I go and take a second look at them. They pay and leave quickly, speaking only the most necessary. They leave on foot again. There's empty beers at the table. The teenagers drank nothing. The waitress says that they devoured the fries and drank the beer like beasts. Apparently they didn't talk to each other at all. The next day, my boss doesn't even remember happening. He remembers going to the door to tell some weird people to leave and that they were closed, and that's it. We never saw that family again. This was in 2021, and I still don't know what happened. It's still odd and strange. I don't know what the hell they were. So I've lived in Idaho my entire life, and I've spent a lot of time outside or in the wilderness as a kid. My grandparents would take me camping, and my older brother and I would always hike up whatever trail we could find just to get a view of the sunset. On one of these occasions, something terrifying happened. We were up at a campsite that I only know as Warm River. The river there never freezes over. I think that's why it's called Warm River. And my brother and I were on a regular evening hike. There was this old tunnel bored through the mountain at one part of the trail, probably an old train tunnel, and we were walking through it when I heard something that I'll never forget. After walking probably 2/3 of the way through the tunnel, I heard a terrible screech at the end that we entered through. The screech wasn't like anything I had ever heard before. I've heard the screams of animals on dark and windy nights. I even think I've heard Bigfoot calls a few times, but never the metallic, grinding screech that I heard that day. The point is, whatever the sound was, it did not sound natural in any capacity. I probably jumped 5 feet in the air when I heard it, and my brother shouted a few choice curses before shooing me quickly to the exit of the tunnel. At this point, my brother decided that we should just continue walking and head back after whatever had made the noise hopefully cleared out. We didn't have any firearms on us, so I was pretty upset. My brother reassured me that it would be fine, and we made the walk back without any incident. However, I didn't get any sleep that night. Whether it was the thing that screeched at us or just my imagination, I heard things moving around the campsite the whole night, as well as whispers echoing through the darkness outside the trailer. I woke my brother up a few times to check out what it was, but he refused each time, telling me that it was probably just other campers staying up late and enjoying themselves. The rest of that trip was pretty normal. We packed up the following day and my life continued on as normal. I was disconcerted, but I chalked what happened up as a harmless event that must have just been exaggerated in retrospect. A few weeks later, I went up to Pine Basin, an old ski lodge that my family rented each year for family reunions. Here, I would mess around with my cousins, our favorite activities being, quote, night games. Then we would play hide and seek, a game called Ghost in the Graveyard, and other games like that. In one instance, I was chosen to be the seeker for a hide and seek game. Because I was one of the younger cousins, I got a flashlight as an advantage. Normally, all the younger cousins hid close to the lodge, and the older ones hid in the trees or at the base of the nearby mountain. As I was searching near the bottom of the mountain, I heard a familiar whistle up the mountain a bit. We would always whistle as a hint to our locations. It sounded like someone was hiding up near a tree known as, quote, the underwear tree. You can guess why. So I began trekking up toward the whistle. As I climbed closer, I got an uneasy feeling in my stomach. I continued on warily and convinced myself that I would be fine. I hated walking in the night alone, but I figured whoever I found would walk me back to the lodge. As I neared the tree, I noticed that it was deathly silent. This alerted me that something was very wrong, because you could always hear the adults having fun back at the lodge. I was anxious to hurry back, so I called out, "I found you, Scott." I thought the whistle was my older cousin's. "Come back down with me." I got no reply, but I wasn't planning on waiting. As I began walking back down the path, I heard a voice call, "You almost had me." So I ran back up to investigate. I flashed my light in the branches of the tree, and I saw a monstrosity that was not my cousin. It looked like a poorly drawn stick figure made into a human with its emaciated figure and lifeless eyes. I remember its face looked like the skin on its head was being pulled from behind. It had torn and stretched features. As soon as I saw the creature, I screamed, dropped the flashlight, and ran back to the lodge. The entire time that I ran, I was overcome by an overpowering smell, and I could hear the thing running after me. As I approached the camp, I saw a few people, my cousins, at the bottom of the mountain waiting for me. I was crying and shaking, and they took me inside. I told my dad what happened, but my cousins all said that they didn't see anything following me. The adults kept us inside for the night, and I kept hearing sounds drifting from the mountains. I never played night games after that happened, and I was always terrified that my cousins would not listen to my warnings. Ever since that night, I've always felt uneasy up in those mountains. I used to be really religious and figured it was a demon of some kind trying to kill me or something like that. But those mountains have never felt the same after that incident. A few years ago, the game Until Dawn became really popular, and I watched a walkthrough of it on YouTube. When the Wendigo first appeared in the game, I got chills down my spine. It was exactly what I saw, and I did a ton of research on them. I have to figure that somebody must have gotten snowed in at that old lodge at some point and resorted to cannibalism. But that doesn't explain what happened at Warm River. I still hear that screech from time to time. It never occurred to me until watching Until Dawn that they might be from the same thing, and it scares the hell out of me every time. I heard the same screech when I was up there last time. That's why I finally decided to tell my story. So I'm Australian, and you can make your jokes here, but I was about 26 at the point that this happened. I came into possession of a large rural property west of Taree in Hunter Valley and a very large chunk of cash after my grandfather's passing. After a while I decided screw it, I'm going to settle out there, and I'm going to become relatively self-sufficient. It was also just to be alone, to be honest, and be left alone by other people. So I bought some chickens, some goats, and just for fun, just because I was able to, a mule. I ended up loving this creature beyond all belief. He was already saddle trained by the time I got him. I named him Jack. Fast forward a few months. I was a part of an equestrian hiking club up in the Blue Mountains. I was kind of an oddball though, since most of the other members of the group that I usually ride with were young girls and their ponies, normally alongside one or both of their parents. It was like this all except for our supervisor or guide, Noah. He was an Aboriginal guy with a rough-cut water horse named Steel. Most hikes would usually end up with me sticking to the back of the pack and talking with Noah. This goes on for a few months. I was practically a supervisor myself after a while. I was often asked to help out with issues on the road, usually pulling younger riders up on their rein and saddle or foot positions or de-spooking other horses. I come to really appreciate how calm and collected that my mule is in comparison. Noah ends up trusting me immensely. He can see that I have my life together. He asks me if I would want to come on a multi-day trip through the national park up past Nunes Plateau with another group. And I thought this would be a good time to be around some more experienced riders. And I was right. I made preparations. I get there with Jack. I was greeted by Noah and a bunch of older, much more experienced riders with actual full-sized horses. This goes off without a hitch for the first day. Cut to that night. Everyone's hitched their animals, and we've set up camp for the night. So fast forward again to 2 a.m. Being a light sleeper, I am immediately aware that something has severely spooked one of the horses. I hear stamping, whining. The horse is making a real scene. All the other horses were awake, whickering nervously at each other. I get out there, since I realize that nobody else is going to. I get a little bit spooked myself, as the horses don't seem to calm down right away, even with my methods. It starts kicking behind itself. I grab a flashlight, and I check behind it. I hear sort of a tromping scuttle from whatever it was, and I see leaves being kicked up from the upper corners of my flashlight. I assume that it was just a wombat or a swamp wallaby or something like that. Definitely sounded like one too, and they're both pretty common around here anyways. After this, I do go back to my camp, and I wake up tired, as per usual. Noah tells everyone that this is going to be the longest part of the trip, and it will likely take until the late evening to get to the next campsite. I saddle up Jack, and we get on with it. We're walking all day. There's a couple of pit stops for water and breaks. The sun starts setting as we get relatively close to the next site. Jack starts acting up in the middle of the trail. I only just noticed that he had picked up a load of ticks on one of his feet and legs. This was on the same foot that he busted a shoe a few days before the trip, and he was still getting used to the new one. I tell Noah that I have to deal with this. He wants everyone to stop. I urge him onwards, and I tell him that I won't be long, that the trail's obvious from here. He trusts me enough to know what I'm doing, but pleads with me to not get lost along the way. He says that he'd leave a fire or something going so I could find them, so I get to picking. Somehow, I didn't notice that Jack apparently had a small nick across from his hoof, which is what attracted all of the ticks. I pick out all the ticks from his leg. I clean his wound with antibacterial wipes and check his shoe. All of this takes maybe about 20 minutes, but it was 20 minutes that we didn't have. The sun was just barely there now. I could only just barely see the trail. I was looking for the light of a fire or something up ahead, but there was nothing. Inevitably, we took a wrong turn. We wandered up the side of a mountain for 15 minutes, not knowing where the hell we were going. And then Jack suddenly, in the middle of what was supposedly the trail, gives a quick snort, and abruptly stops. His ears are pricked directly forwards. I give him a tap and try to get him to move forward a bit, but nothing. I gently tug on his reins to get him to focus. Nothing. He's completely seized up. I know this animal very intimately, and I know that he only does this if something has really spooked him. I start to feel very uneasy myself. I pull on his reins a little harder. Jack turns his head very slightly toward me, only just enough that I can see the whites of his eyes are fully exposed. I was scared now. And then suddenly there's a small rustling that is heard in front of us. Jack snaps his head forward again, splays his front feet slightly. I keep talking to him softly and patting his haunches, trying to calm him down. In reality, I think I was trying to reassure myself more than the mule. Suddenly, I become blisteringly aware of something. The silence. Complete and utter silence. No owls or possums calling out. No frogs. No crickets even. Nothing but my own slightly labored breathing. I hear a small rock get dislodged behind us. Jack flinches and starts slowly stepping back. Instantly, I hear that same tromping scuttle that I heard before coming at us from behind and in front, and then Jack loses it. He makes a sound I have never heard come from an animal before or since. He jumps a full foot in the air with a sprawling, rear-legged kick, almost completely throwing me from the saddle. He bolts down the mountain at breakneck speed. Meanwhile, during that jump, one of my boots gets caught in the stirrup iron. I'm now being dragged over jagged rocks down a mountain at immense speeds by my left leg that's still attached to the saddle of a terrified mule. Despite protecting my head with my arm, I'm still acutely aware that the scuttling sound is still directly next to us. I can barely see anything. It's almost completely dark, only just enough to make out leaves and rocks that are being kicked up about a meter next to us. Somehow, it's managing to keep pace. I'm desperately trying to make purchase on anything I can to try and pull myself back up onto the saddle. I managed to somehow grab onto what I can only assume was the saddle flap and hoist myself up just a little bit. It was a bad idea. My arm, protecting my head, makes violent contact with a massive rock pointing at the ground. My wrist gets immediately dislocated. It hurt so bad. Not a moment after, the scuttling to my side gets much louder, and I can feel what I can only picture to be a talon strike the side of my head, making a deep cut just above my temple. One might assume that it was another rock, but rocks don't cling to the place that they cut you. Jack cries out and almost tramples me, trying not to trip over himself. I was resisting the urge to crap my pants. I somehow managed to flail my body upwards enough to give me enough clarity to grab onto the saddle's pommel without my legs slipping through the stirrup and hoist myself back up with one hand. Basically, I was clinging to Jack for dear life now. My face keeps getting whacked by tree branches as we finally manage to reach the bottom of the mountain, directly into the camp that we were trying to find the whole time. I didn't even notice the light of the bonfire that we were rushing towards. I had my head down, focusing on the trees and the ever-impending and ever-closing in scuttling that was next to us on both sides. Jack also apparently didn't expect this, as when he suddenly hit flat ground after the downwards incline, he completely toppled over, now fully throwing me from my saddle and into the hard stony dirt below. Jack was fine. I was not. He got up almost immediately, kicking and braying and spooking all the other horses and sending everyone in the camp into a panic. I just writhed there for a moment, winded and in a lot of pain, just trying to get up and run. Noah rushes to me, hands all over me, trying to set me right. In his defense, I did in fact have blood streaming from the side of my head. I was covered in deep scratches, and I had a limp wrist. I managed to wheeze out, "Hand me a flashlight." "A flashlight? You need a doctor." I yelled out again, "Hand me a flashlight." I could still hear them. The scuttling, the rustling. It was still there, pacing around the camp. The spooked brays and squeals of the horses and the concerned babbling of people in the camp almost seemed muffled in comparison to the sound of what I knew was there, pacing around the edges of the fire's light. I got handed my flashlight. I could hear one of them, not 10 meters away. I shined my light directly at where I knew it was, and find nothing. A flurry of leaves and small twigs were kicked up as it skittered up the small gully like it was a frightened lizard. But there was nothing, no form to be seen. I turn off my flashlight and I turn to Noah. I say, "We can't stay here tonight." He says, "What do you mean? What did you do?" I stand up and look him dead in the face. "We can't stay here tonight." I don't actually remember much after that. I know that Noah patched me up and acted very creeped out. We were actually forced to stay there for the night, but I refused to let anyone douse the fire, and everyone and their horses were up all night. Everyone blamed me for being tired the next morning and having to cut the trip short so I could get proper medical attention. I didn't care. All I remember doing is sitting on a log, listening to those things circle our camp until sunrise, and then spending about 4 days in a hospital while my brother took care of Jack. Obviously, I haven't been back there since, but I still go riding with Jack. So if those encounters piqued your interest or gave you a chill up your spine, make sure to like and subscribe because I do this 3 times a week. And if you would like to donate to the channel or send in send in a story of your own, I have an email as well as a PayPal and a Patreon in the description below. And here on YouTube, I have memberships and super thanks. And of course, just watching the video, liking the video, sharing and favoriting and all that stuff really helps the channel grow. And with that, I hope you'll stick around for the other videos this week and thereafter. So, as always, thank you for pulling up a stump with me. Thank you for watching. Have a good week.